Hello, I'm Ruben.
Hi, I'm Ashley.
We created this video as a reflection of our experience at the Global Health Conference in Chicago, in collaboration with our professors and the students who attended the conference.
We hope you enjoy.
Thank you.
I sat down with a few students and professors to discuss a couple questions about the conference. The first question was, what did you like about the CUGH conference?
What I liked was that there were so many different topics, like anything from environmental issues to the health of refugees to violence to ethics related to global health. So I loved that diversity of topics.
I really like that certain students, even though, because we're separated into cohorts, so we got to meet other students, and I thought that was pretty cool that we got to bond, and also with the professors as well, because you don't really see that every day where you get to talk to them for very long. And we actually got to see their perspective as well, and since each professor has a certain focus, and they were able to give us certain inputs, even like where to go with our nursing degrees.
There was a couple of things I did like. Most of everything was okay, but there's some that stood out really good. And what I do remember is I couldn't help myself thinking how connected we are in the world when it comes to healthcare from all the four corners of the world. We really are one world in the global view. And so when they were talking about the impact of global health, and from all these people who came from all over the world, you could tell that we have to curb global health together, not just one area.
I liked being able to interact with the professors. I thought it was a great experience being able to go out to the trip and interact with the professors, have dinner with them, attend these meetings with them, and then pretty much I got to know them, and that's something that I've never done with a program or a school. I've never really interacted with a professor. Because of this conference and this trip, I was able to build a relationship with them.
The second question that I asked was, at the conference, what topics stood out to you?
For me, it was the issue of refugees in global health, because in that particular session, there were some refugees on the panel, and then others who were experts who belong to organizations that assist refugees. So just hearing their stories and hearing their struggles, it brought back to me some of the realities that we also face here in Los Angeles, where this is a city where we have lots of refugees living, and then just across the border, there's most definitely an issue that's growing of refugee health. So for me, that really was enlightening.
There was a lady from Peru. This was, I think, the Interior Ministry of Health from Peru. And she was from, I think, the University of Cayetana. And she was talking about how to curb corruption in the healthcare field. And she even gave an example of how you can come about to close bridges of corruption, or you have big people or politicians that influence the dynamics of healthcare, where you find that some people in the same country have disparity of care. And so she was talking of how she took her own effort and curbed the crime, and was, there was backflashes and all that, but she went ahead and still moved on, and in the very long run, she won, and that stood out for me.
It was won by a Peruvian speaker, and she started talking about how you have to take into consideration people's personal beliefs. Usually I'm stuck in a very Hispanic culture, so I'm just Hispanic, culturally educated, and she starts talking about how when you go to different places of the world, you can't just be stuck on your culture. You have to be educated before you go. It's not so much you'll be educating them on their culture, but you have to be educated the other way around.
I really like three, but I'm just going to name two. One of them, it was talking about the immigrants in the border and how they're being treated in the detention centers, and how they're not getting sufficient nutrition, or they're not being treated as well as it should be, and the trauma that's being implemented to the children and to the parents when they're held there. So that really spoke out to me, especially coming from a Hispanic background. So I really enjoyed that one. And they also talked about, in the same one, they talked about how they're making a difference and what they can do to alleviate some of those
Hardships.
Yeah.
There was a couple topics that stood out to me. One of the first topics that did really kind of changed my mentality was in regards to nurse practitioners or PA students going out and doing like study abroad, and how they would go to a different country trying to help, you know, the underserved community. And that was something that has always kind of caught my attention, you know, going somewhere else where they have different resources than what we have here. But one of the things that they talked about was how sometimes we do it for selfish reasons, which to me was interesting because I always thought of it as being a selfless, you know, experience. You want to go somewhere where people have less resources to help out, but it pretty much was about, you know, us as the student trying to go out there to gain more clinical experience, you know, and we go out there, we kind of like put band-aids on whatever they need, but then we're there for maybe 2 weeks or a couple months, but when we leave, what happens to their care, right? So they kind of did talk about that, which really did open my eyes, because it's like, it's true, you know, they don't have the resources that we bring to them, and we help them out for a couple of weeks, months, give them medication, but then there's no follow-up.
The last question that I asked was, why do you think it is important for students to attend this conference?
So I was excited that we were able to take 9 students to CUGH, and particularly that several of you, about 6 of you, you're coming newly into nursing. So I see it as an opportunity to show that nurses can practice anywhere, not just within the US, but anywhere in the world. And that as nursing students, you know that there are other options other than also practicing at the bedside. You could work globally in policy, in different healthcare organizations that function everywhere in the world. So it actually helps students to see that there's no limitation.
These kinds of experiences where we can have our students leave campus and actually be somewhere else is always good. Whether we're going to Chicago or to the Dominican Republic or Haiti, you know, anything where we can actually have our students step out of this known daily environment is, I think, really good for everyone's professional and individual growth. And so one thing I saw was just the fact that our students, many of them, was the first time they had been to Chicago. I think that's eye-opening, and that's also part of what we can do to help people develop those professional skills of just being able to be in different contexts, to be in different places and to be around different people. All of that just helps us to be, you know, better at what we do.
I think it's really important for CDU students, or any student actually that's trying to pursue the medical field, to go to these conferences, because they really are an eye-opener. You know, we learn what we learn in school, in our lectures, you know, and it's pretty much how to become a good, you know, either a good nurse or a good nurse practitioner, a good PA, you know, they teach us the skills that we need to do it. But these conferences are really like, okay, that's great, you know how to take care of the patient, but you need to see what's happening, you know, on a bigger level, you know, worldwide. So it's good, you know, to know these things, to know how. Another topic they had talked about was like culture sensitivity, you know, really learning, like when we go to somebody else's country, to not try and bring our principles, you know, because we're going into their home, into their territory. We should try to understand their belief as opposed to us trying to push our belief system on them. So it would be really good for students, you know, to learn these kinds of things, and I think it would make them overall a better, you know, healthcare professional.
Oh, I think it's not just from CDU. I think student is a big shot to have students attend such conferences. One being reason that they're future leaders of tomorrow.
I really feel like it's beneficial to the person, educational-wise, and for individual growth as well, because it takes the person out of their comfort zone, and it takes them to a place where they don't know what really to expect. And you really learn a lot from this, and you can bring it back and use it as motivation and inspiration.
it's important because we are not very, well, at least I'm not very health, globally health, Yes, so it's like, this was an eye-opener for me. And especially if you're coming into a program that's supposed to be a bachelor's program. And since I'm doing collaborative, it just kind of opens my eyes to a lot of things that I'm not really exposed to. So it's not just us that should go, but I think other students as well would be a pretty good experience for them.
Overall, the conference was a great experience for both students and faculty. Attending the conference built and strengthened relationships amongst the faculty and students.